All for one.
And one for all.
On guard!
One for all. I have the heart of a musketeer.
On guard!
You're listening to the True Musketeers podcast, brought to you by Fencing Club Trekanten, the largest and oldest fencing club in Denmark. Welcome to the True Musketeers podcast, episode number 2, the show where we dive into the sport of fencing and the people behind it. My name is Thijs Andersen Samsi, and I'm your host. With me in the studio today is my very good friend, Mr. Malte Trier Mørch. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. This is then our second podcast together, so it's amazing. It's
Yeah, I guess, on a roll now.
we are definitely on a roll, and I think we'll conquer the world one podcast at a time. So stay tuned.
Exactly, that's the plan at least. That's the plan. How have you been since last?
I have been busy renovating my flat. That's been going on for a while. So we're now in March 2022, and I started this project in June 2021.
All right.
So it's been going on for a while, but I am in the last stages of completing my kitchen and living room, and then just as I'm completing that, I'm kind of starting on the next big thing in my flat. I should probably not have done that, but that's the reality of my life right now.
All right. But keeping busy, I guess, and I guess it started out of the lockdown where you had some time on your hands.
True,
Yeah.
it's time and money.
Time and money.
Yeah, I was not spending money on anything. I was not going to the movies. I was not going to any nightclubs. I was not dating, not doing anything. So it was just basically me and maybe a little bit of takeout food sometimes. But I was not spending money on anything, and I had all the time in the world. And then started this project. It was going to be a little tiny project. I was just going to do my little tiny kitchen, like 8 square meters or so. That's the size of my kitchen. So I was going to do that. And then, whoa,
Yeah.
damn, man, it just took off from there like
One
a
thing
rocket.
led to another.
One thing led on to another. And now it's just basically me building like the pyramids of Egypt in my flat. That's kind of the project right now.
Yeah. It takes its size of its own, I guess, once you get started there.
It has its own life right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, good to hear. So for the topic for today that we're going to dive a little into is not the COVID, because a lot of things is going on that's kind of surpassing the COVID, but maybe just a recap of the whole lockdown, because that definitely changed a lot for a lot of clubs since they couldn't practice the sport. Members, had to be kept in order to keep the business open, but the business was not open.
Yeah.
So definitely, we've been faced with our challenges, quite similar to a lot of other clubs around the world that were in the same situation. I guess everybody's been there.
Mm-hmm.
No country was spared. So maybe just a recap on, the learning points. What did we do? How did we handle the lockdown situation? Did we take something from that situation and kind of kept it while moving forward. So that's just setting the scene for today. And maybe just going back to the start of the lockdown, the first lockdown.
Very beginning.
The very beginning, yeah.
The very beginning, well, my COVID story, it kind of starts like everyone else in March of 2020. I just traveled to Anaheim with Alexander Turonis, and we had just completed a practice with the Hong Kong team at this fencing club in Anaheim. And I was sitting in the parking lot after the practice. It had been a really good practice. And then these messages starts popping up on my phone, and it's just basically they get worse and worse. And I have this app from the Danish Foreign Ministry. They have this app, and it came to life after having been dormant forever. It just started giving me push messages all the time, and it just steadily got worse and worse. And then during the night, like the real message came that just basically said, like, if you're Danish and you're abroad, you need to find your way home immediately. And I woke up Alex, and we found the first flight home. And before we went home, I had a conversation with with the chairwoman of Drikker, Lene Jensen, and we talked about our possibilities, and it was almost surrealistic to just make the decision that we had to shut down. I don't know if that's ever happened before in the history of the club, maybe not since World War II.
No.
I don't even know if they shut down for that, but just coming up with that decision to shut down, and it was that was really something I've never been prepared to do.
So in Denmark, at least, there was kind of a consensus almost that this is something, serious we haven't seen before. We need to tackle that as a country. Being a smaller country, though, and having, I guess, more centered politics, it almost felt like everybody kind of accepted the reality, and we just, sure.
Yeah. I think it's been a great force in Denmark that the parliament have been in total agreement about everything. So when I got home from the United States, we of course came home to a very different Denmark than the Denmark we left. You and I had just been out partying a few days before, and we made this stupid picture of us and 2 Corona beers, just joking about it, and then not thinking much of it. Hand sanitizing all the time, and then we thought, that's gonna be it. But then we got home to a very different country, but a united country. I think that was we all knew that we played a part in getting back to normal. So we, as everyone else, had to shut down, and all of Danish sport shut down. Even elite sport in the beginning, so like no athletes could do their normal training, in whatever sport it was. And I think at first we believed that it would only be like a week or two, so we didn't come up with an immediate thing. Like we didn't do anything on Zoom or YouTube or whatever.
No, I mean, so again, it's the one thing is the information flow, and we're gonna get to that because, as you said, we were in this for the first 2 weeks is very uncertain. What is going on? How is this evolving? Will this go away? Until we, I guess, find ourselves in this new reality that we need to kind of handle the situation we are in, because obviously it was quite apparent to us that it didn't seem to change back again. At least not for the foreseeable future, though. I think in an afterthought, nobody would have ever guessed that we would be here like 2.5 years, and it's still, I mean, it's not life-threatening, at least not classified as that in Denmark, but the duration and our handling of that.
After a week or two, it became evident that this was probably not going to be over anytime soon. Like numbers were kind of stalling in Denmark. It was not getting any worse. It was not really getting any better, but we kind of stalled it. But you could see images from Bergamo and Italy and many other places that really frightened everyone. So it was getting worse, and we just it was just clear that we're not gonna get rid of this disease anytime soon. So our physiotherapist Nikolaj Rasmussen, he was actually the first one to come up with some like alternative training program. He had, as everyone else, had a lot of time on his hands, and so he made two videos on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, of like some basic strength training that is important for fencers that you could do at home in your living room on the floor, and 2 really nice short videos. And that kind of got me and my colleague Ed Jeffries going. He had a little bit of experience on the topic, as he had made some training videos while he was in China. And so he kind of knew, he had an idea about what we could do. And then we started doing that, and we like downloaded Zoom on the computer. And at first we like, he did a part in his living room, and I had access to a little bit like a larger space that I could use, and then we would be apart from each other, and we would get the kids together, and it was really nice to see the kids online and just talk to them, and a part of it was actually just having a short conversation with the kids, and so they could meet each other, and we did some trainings, and it reminded them a little bit about something that they used to do before COVID hit. And
yeah, and I mean, so again, just skipping the information, the flow of information, that's definitely something that's a focus, or was a focus, it still is, but so important for the club to actually kind of retain the members and making sure, because the reality in Denmark is the club is founded on voluntary work. We have a few employees, you being one of them. We're very, as any club, very dependent on the members, not just to support us financially, but obviously just to keep fencing on the map. Because if we came out on the other side of that reality and we didn't have any fencers left, that would be catastrophic. Not just for us, but for the sport.
It was definitely, I think, the main objective during both lockdowns. Well, we actually had kind of 3 lockdowns. We were not hit by the 3rd lockdown in Denmark, but so the 2 first ones, I think it was important to just give the members some kind of alternative to normal practice, because you can think of Zoom training what you want. You can hate it, or maybe you like it. I don't think anybody really likes it, but it is what it is. But I think just the fact you can say, okay, I'm not gonna do it. If you're a member of the club, you can say, I'm not gonna do Zoom training, but at least they're trying.
Exactly.
At least they're coming up with something. So I'm choosing not to do it, but at least they're doing something.
Yeah.
And I think that sent out a real clear signal to all the members of the club that there is a reason you are paying your monthly fee, and we're actually trying to give something back to you.
Yeah, because I mean, that's at least what I see in a difference from commercial sports, right? In that period, a lot of commercial sports, because they're driven in a whole different fashion, they were able to compensate for memberships and stuff like that. Being a bigger organization, obviously, that kind of luxury was not available for the majority of sports in Denmark. And actually, I think it was recommended not to offer that at all, because we are an association and not, I mean, obviously driven on the purpose of promoting the sport and educating on it, but it is an association that you are a member and a part of, and that kind of exists even though we actually can't do the training. But obviously we need to feel that the members get something for the fee that they're paying, and at least have the option to tap into that.
Yeah, or tap out. Just having just putting the members in a position where they can take part, or they can choose not to. But that's just that they have that they are in that position. I think it's immensely important. So I think we were very good at containing the situation. I think we got out of COVID quite well. I was actually surprised as to how few members stopped doing the time. So, and I've heard from other clubs who decided not to do anything during COVID that they have been hit quite hard. Many clubs have really seen declining numbers.
Yeah, and I mean, and just not skipping ahead maybe a bit, but we're definitely going to touch on that, because we saw some interesting things from the first lockdown to the second lockdown to the kind of third, and some psychological effects on the lockdown as well, and we're going to touch on that in just a second. But circling back maybe to obviously the Zoom training, the virtual training, the club had more focus, just information flow on the opportunities for the members, what they could do. And especially also when we were allowed to open up just a bit again with very, very heavy restrictions.
Yeah.
Maybe touching on the point as well that we did something else than the Zoom.
Yes. Well, we also had like these live broadcasts on Facebook that we decided to. We at the beginning we had a discussion, you and me and Lene, about whether or not we should open it up to other fencers than just our own members. And I thought that we were gonna put a lot of energy into making these live broadcasts. It's not easy to do, so I thought, why the hell not invite everyone for that? And we decided on being quite aggressive on social media about it, and kind of inviting the world to practice in trekant. I had this idea that we, for a few months, would be the fencing club of the world, actually. And it actually kind of took off well because, I mean, by the end of it, I was getting messages from Brazil and Belgium and Australia and many places asking about technical questions and like how we're doing it and stuff like that. So it ended up being quite a thing. And so it was fun to do. And it took my mind off the general desperation of not being able to do what I love.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's a big leap from being a coach in fencing to suddenly finding yourself in front of a camera, showing the world, exercise things, right?
Yeah, that's true. And it was fun to do. And then we had this special New Year's Eve segment that we did, and way some crazy things. So. And then, of course, as you touched on that before, but then, of course, we opened up again slowly in small, tiny baby steps. And every step was hit by a shitload of restrictions and rules and do's and don'ts and stuff like that. Man, we had to shower in hand sanitizer and, not being too close. And I remember like doing outdoor training in almost freezing degrees. But it was also heartwarming to see how the members would show up in all kinds of weather. I mean, for people who have not visited Denmark, the weather can be super shitty. But just in like coaches and fencers in rain, in almost freezing degrees, and it was just, and see them just go at it outdoor, it was crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, so definitely there were, equal amount of desperation amongst our members, and they really wanted to do something. And luckily, even the weather weren't with us all the time. We were able to actually execute some outdoor training and get that on the schedule there. And also remember when going inside, we had the restriction on only 10 people in our hall, including the coach.
Well, actually when we opened up for indoor training, it very quickly normalized. I think what you're thinking about was especially when the second lockdown was kind of creeping in on us, like the training got more and more difficult to do indoors, and the rules became weirder and weirder. Like I'm gonna tell you guys about a weird situation. So we could not be more than 10 at any practice, but just before the second lockdown. But if you put up plastic cones in the middle of the fencing hall and you kind of made 2 training areas, then you could have 10 people in both areas, so that would be 20. But there were no rule against like making a third area, so then you could be like 30 people. And I don't know if the scientists had come up with an idea that COVID-19 couldn't
see the cones,
couldn't transmit passing a plastic cone. Maybe that's a thing, but like just members hated it, the coaches hated it, everybody hated it. But at least you could do something so people would turn up. We made these complicated sign-up sheets on Google Sheets where people could kind of sign up, and you would have like an early practice and there would be a late practice because of the numbers, and it got so complicated, and I can't begin to tell you about how angry people were about it, and we were just trying the best we could. And actually, I must say, when we finally locked down the second time, I was almost happy because I could not cope with more rules and regulations. I just could not. I mean, it couldn't be any more crazy at the end. So I was actually relieved.
Yeah,
we
definitely.
locked down the second time. But the second lockdown was not as severe as the first one. We could still have elite training. So like senior elite could still fence.
Yeah, because there was some special rules made for elite sports at some point where they actually were allowed indoors to do a training, being in a contained group, right? That was kind of the argument for that.
So the first lockdown, in the beginning, nobody could do anything. Then elite training kind of like came back like in May. But the second lockdown started out with professional sports, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Professional sports athletes could fence or do whatever they did for a sport. So it started out a little softer than the first lockdown.
Yeah, definitely. So, and skipping just a little ahead now, obviously everything kind of opened up again after the first lockdown, and we were back, and people were kind of happy about that. And then we went into kind of the second hard lockdown again.
Mm. Yeah, which was, as I said, a little less severe, but way longer.
Yeah, definitely.
way longer. I forget exactly how long it was. I think it was like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. And that kind of took a toll, right? Everybody's frustrated again, and this time for a longer period of time. But we also in the club said to ourselves, we need to find out, how, when we come back again for the lockdown, could we do anything other than kind of retain the members and stuff like that? And we came up with an idea for doing something extra. I mean, maybe we didn't think of that as the first purpose, but it turned out to be kind of social thing as well, and also supporting containing the members. And obviously I'm talking about opening like a kiosk or a shop where people could buy beverages and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That was not something we had before that. And actually in the area that we are located, there's, it's in walking distance, but you need to go get something, and maybe it's not cold. So if you want a soda or something, that's not an option.
Yeah, true. I remember sometime during the whole COVID thing, I was watching something on Facebook, I think, and it was about this pizzeria somewhere in Germany, and they were really struggling financially. And then one of the guys at the pizzeria found out that their oven had a certain temperature where they could kind of form like plastic. They could like work with different kinds of plastics, and then they started to make like visors, protective visors for the local hospital, and they actually bought those visors made at the pizzeria, and so the pizzeria survived. And at the end of the story ends that so the pizzeria survived and their business survived, but maybe not only that. Now it was not one business, it was 2 businesses, Now they could make pizza and plastic products at the same time. Who would have thought? So building on that idea, I came up and very quickly drew you into it.
I remember
about like opening a little shop at the fencing club selling soft drinks and beer, because that's I will get back to the beer part, why we sell that, but mostly soft drinks. And because we had lost a lot of revenue from events. We do a lot of events in Denmark, earning money with that. And so obviously we couldn't host any events during the lockdown. So we had lost a lot of money. And then I was thinking, okay, how can we get some of that money back? And so now we still, this is definitely after COVID, and we still have that little shop open, and it's actually earning a good amount of money over the year.
Yeah, definitely.
So when sometimes when the members are thirsty, they will go and get a Powerade or whatever.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, in the area that we're in is hosting a lot of different sports, and that has a social effect as well for the different clubs doing different sports.
Yeah,
we became the center for meeting up after practice, just kicking back and relaxing, and definitely got us to know more about the clubs that surround us. Mm-hmm. Actually,
yeah, we got a lot closer with the local beach volley club. Copenhagen Beach, I think they're called, and then the handball club that works right next to us. And then, but also like we have all this company football, like company soccer teams, and I think having a beer after a game is just immensely important to these guys, and there are so many teams. And if they win, they need to celebrate. If they lose, they kind of need to get their mood up a little bit. So it doesn't really matter if they win or lose. They still need just a beer. It's not like they're getting drunk or anything. They just need a beer. And now they come to us and they buy that beer or soft drink. And also we're actually right now looking at all the parents watching their kids play soccer right now. and they look very cold. So usually these parents will come over and buy a coffee.
Yeah.
And it just adds up.
It does, and it also gives the classes rerun a social aspect, right? Because now we are able to just relax, kick back in the lounge, and have something to drink, so we can kind of extend practice. Maybe it's not practice obviously, but it's a social aspect, and that what make the members show up for practice one more time, because it's nice, it's relaxed, friendly people and stuff like that. So definitely doing a difference. And as to your point on the events that we lost revenue on, definitely we saw after the second lockdown, or in the second lockdown actually, that people on the first one had been committed to paying their membership fees just to support, because nobody knew the end of that, and it was important to support. When we opened up again and then locked down again, then we saw a increase in people or members luckily just pausing their membership. So we actually lost revenue on that one. So it's important for us to kind of keep something when we opened up again, and the shop made that happen, and with all the benefits following that. So definitely a game changer there. So one thing that I want to touch on as well is, the whole distance thing that you mentioned, the face or the visor, the protection, stuff like that. But as many fencing clubs, right, we have club equipment that you can actually borrow. I know some clubs has it included in the floor fee or stuff like that, but there was some consideration on how to handle that as well, being in close contact, with the people wearing the equipment or using the equipment. So maybe just a couple of words, if you have on the whole thought process around, how would we handle that?
Well, obviously, we were worried about if people were like sharing masks and equipment, like the risk of somebody getting COVID because of that.
Yeah, the contact
was significant. So we changed the system from that people would borrow equipment from Trekanten into like renting equipment. So they got a club kit, and then they would bring that home, and then they will be the sole users of that particular kit. So we would minimize the risk of COVID transmitting through like sharing equipment. And that's also like a thing that we've stayed with now. So that's actually also an extra revenue that we have now that we didn't have before.
And definitely putting that into perspective, right? Because fencing equipment, as you know, everybody knows it's not the cheapest thing in the world. So it's a lot of investment on the club side to actually have that offer. But also now it's more like, I would say, streamlined. The whole process on becoming a new member, you can rent the equipment for, actually as long as you need it. We do have some adjustments in maybe, going back to sharing certain stuff, because certain stuff is really expensive to buy. But the whole process that, also for the kids classes, right? They don't need to spend like 20 minutes finding the right size of jacket and stuff like that. So there's a lot of nice things around that.
Yeah, especially suiting up for fencing with the kids. It's definitely a lot faster now than it used to. So that's an added advantage, I think. But even one of my vivid memories from COVID is just still washing a shitload of equipment. We have this washer at the club, and it's been working 24/7.
Yeah.
Man, I'm just getting to the club and just seeing a mountain of fencing equipment, and I just go, okay, I know what I'm gonna do the next few hours.
Exactly. And it's wearing on the equipment, and not to touch on the environment, that's a whole different conversation. But
so heavy that this is past us now. Fortunately, I hope we've seen the last of COVID lockdowns and weird rules.
Yeah, but I mean, adversity teaches you how to get by, and I think, even if there's a lot of things that we don't miss and hope will never come back, actually, I think it's made us mature in handling a really, really challenging situation, coming up with solutions that would work in that. And again, good comes out of that, right? Because we get inspired and moving out of the box.
I definitely think I would not do it again unless I was forced to. It's not like I'm looking back at it and it was great times. I think we managed somehow to get some positive stuff out of it. because we worked really hard at it, and it was an all hands on deck situation. We had meetings, virtual meetings late at night when like new rules got introduced or apps suddenly opening was possible. I mean, we worked so hard on being ready as soon as possible. Like, so we got out of it stronger in many ways. We got out of it now having the shop and stuff like that. We got better at communication, but it was really forged in hard times, I must say. But you know, it just sometimes when you're provoked like that, it actually something positive gets out.
And again, just highlighting that changes, you know, later in the lockdowns were just announced on a weekend, typically, right, from the politician side. And, you know, everybody scrambled on a Sunday or a Saturday late night, something to get things ready for the next week. Yeah. So definitely, it was not fun. And also, I just want to touch on the last thing, right? So, you know, seeing the lockdown on the second lockdown and then we opened up again, then something strange happened because we have been able to retain the members. They have been committed to staying with the club. But all of a sudden, then things opened up again. And then the strange thing happened that they were in the situation that they really had to think about, would I really pick up the membership and fencing again? And unfortunately, you know, after that period, we actually saw a drop in the members we were able to retain because they found out, okay, now I'm going maybe back to work, back to school. I don't have time. I'll prioritize differently, or maybe I'll find another sport. So definitely, like everyone struggled. We kind of struggled again. But as we touched on, you know, we had all these good initiatives that helped us. And just on where we are right now, is that, you know, we crossed a milestone in members. We actually have challenge with our physical location size to host all these new members, which is a luxury problem, I guess. So we're also seeing like an uptake in interest of this sport that we love so much, and people want to try something new.
I think a lot of the members that had just started before COVID broke out, they just started the sport, but they had not really become fencers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Definitely.
they just started fencing because it looked fun and they did it for a while. And some of them were surprisingly loyal in how long they stayed, but it hadn't become a part of their DNA yet.
Yeah.
And so a lot of those members, I think those are generally the ones that we lost.
Yeah, exactly.
We just didn't have time to
No, and I mean understandably, because uncertain times and changing, and nobody knows the future and stuff like that. So, but luckily, you know, things are going really well now, and the future hopefully will look brighter on the lockdown side at least. Fingers crossed.
Well, you know, just finished one crisis, and then the next one pops up in the Ukraine. Not that we need to get into that now, but
no, I think we covered that on the first episode.
Yeah, certainly. So that is also posing new challenges, I think.
Definitely.
It has been a stressful time, and I think everybody are just really hoping that we'll get into a normal situation.
Yeah, definitely. All right, that music tells me it's time to go. And so if you want to get in touch with us, send us an email at podcast@trekanten.org. You can subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice by searching for the True Musketeers podcast. You can catch this and all episodes on trekanten.org/podcast. A big thanks once again to my guest, Mr. Malte Trier Mørch, for sharing his insights and lessons learned from the lockdown. We'll be back with new episodes, but until then, bye for now.